Now, different elections have come and gone in recent times, but they left a nagging feeling in the hearts of many Nigerians on an issue that, if not addressed, could change the course of democracy in the country.
Yeah, speculations that the electorate in different states voted for the highest bidder, deciding the outcome of the election or the amount of cash distributed was rife. Nigerians are worried that this trend, if not checked, would become the order of the day in 2019.
Now, why have politicians adopted this money inducement method to exploit people during elections? Do they believe that a large portion of the populace would be more interested in satisfying their immediate needs than their future? Will this become the driving force for voters to determine who they will vote for during elections? Well, these are some of the questions that will drive today's question.
All right, we have joining us now Executive Director, Journalist for Democratic Rights, Adewale Adeoye. He's joining us right here in the studio. Adewale, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Nice to have you join us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, the concept of monies, highest bidder or the inducements, the way is coming now, is it really a new trend in the electioneering process?
Yeah, thank you. I think basically it's not a new, corruption in the electoral process is not a new phenomenon in Nigeria. If you remember very well, the 1964 general election, there were a lot of manipulations, a lot of fraudulent practices, which snowballed into the 1966 crisis that eventually, took the Nigeria to the path of civil war. In 1983, the same thing happened. You remember what happened in Ondo State, where candidates were being imposed, by the hegemony, and people rose up to resist. Also in 1993, we had the June 12th election that was annulled. I mean, that's also a form of corruption. So it's been part of our history. But we are seeing a new phenomenon. It's a higher version, of electoral malpractice. We are used to ballot snatching, manipulation of figures, and all that. But in this case, I think I can see this one as a higher version of electoral fraud, whereby people are giving money on the day of voting to buy their liberty. And I think it's one of the worst, crime that any country can witness, because it raises a lot of questions about the moral credibility of people that are going to power. It creates a legitimate platform for crooks and scoundrels to emerge as our leaders. And it also is an attempt to consciously co-opt the people into the corruption circle and makes corruption a way of life.
Yeah, something that the people have bought into.
When people begin to sell their votes, what moral right, what legitimacy do they have to, hold the government accountable? So I think it's the worst kind of thing that can happen to this country. And if we are not careful, it has the potential to destabilize the democratic process unless we do something on time.
So obviously, our electoral process and democratic process may have come full circle. That foundation that was laid way back in '64, this is what it's producing now, where the people themselves have become unwitting, partners in corrupting the electoral process. So what? This is really is a very serious
It's a very
thing,
big problem,
isn't it?
It's a very big
because
problem.
It happened mildly in Ondo. The one in Ekiti is the one that has really,
I think that's the most recent one.
It's the most recent one that has become very mind-boggling. Now, the weaponization of poverty, that is what one presidential aspirant called it on this show. There's a deliberate attempt by the political class to keep people impoverished so that it's easy to hand them this 1,000 or tomatoes or onions.
In the case of Kogi.
If the only way you have to win an election is to bribe people, there is no point talking about industrial development or economic upliftment of the society, because it's a waste of time. So if you know that the best way you can satisfy people is not to build roads, it's not to build hospitals, it's not to improve the educational system, that the best thing is that on election day, you should just, give them money, and then that ends it. So it will undermine the potential of Nigeria to be developed as an industrial nation. It will undermine our educational system. It will undermine our moral authority as a country. And even as a people, we are going to lose credibility in the community of nations. So I think it's a major problem. Like I said, it's been on. What has exposed this is the advent of social media, where people can report this instantly. You are not waiting for the mainstream media. People can take pictures and all that. But it's been on. and it has become more daring. You know, it's more or less like a kind of daylight naked robbery of the people. And we must also not forget, it's a crime committed by states and political leaders. So it's a different kind of people that are supposed to actually, you know, create the basis for sanction against those that commit crime. So if they are the ones that are now involved in crime, you know, legitimizing corruption and all that, then it's a very big problem for us.
All right.
Now, in the case of Ekiti State, it's not just about giving money to voters. We also have a situation where the state consciously makes, you know, vote buying a state policy. Because when you come to power and then you go on the street, you distribute cash to people. That's, you know, you are buying their votes, you know, ahead of the election. You see where youths are sitting down, then you bring out 5,000 naira, you throw it at them. You know, you do this consistently for 4 years. So it's like, you know, vote buying is not just on election day. You know, it happens, you know, months, years before the election day, through several strategies.
We also heard where people got alerts, bank alerts from their salary account.
Yeah, so it has become the directives policy of states.
Yeah, but ultimately, some analysts are saying that there's some form of maturing or developing. If you check the way malpractices, electoral malpractices used to be, like you mentioned it here, that the stuffing of ballot boxes and snatching, it seemed INEC
used to be the norm.
It used to be the norm.
Yeah.
We're going past that gradually. And as time goes on, certainly we're going to overcome this too. Don't you think there's some progress or some form of progress?
You can overcome a problem when the state government, that is the custodian of the morality of the country, the ones that are supposed to implement laws and executive laws, they are serious. You know, there are structures put in place for them to ensure that these laws work. But when they happen to be the one violating those laws, how then do you want to hold people accountable? If politicians give bribe to voters, you know, how then, who are the people that are going to take to court? What judiciary will try them when the same politicians are the ones that are in authority? So that's why it's a major problem that can destabilize this country. And we need to rise up to this occasion before it is too late.
Absolutely. It's a good thing you even mentioned the judiciary. Yeah. The judiciary, and of course you would expect that INEC would be the key institutions to drive a credible electoral process. How do you strengthen those institutions in such a way that they actually have teeth to bite?
Well, the way things are, you know, it's not just INEC alone. It's a combination of different forces. INEC, the civil society, the judiciary, and also the executive arm of government.
Even the media.
Even the media. So it's not what INEC can do alone. If you look at the Constitution, there are various provisions in the Constitution. Section 221 of the 1999 Constitution actually says that state government must not fund, you know, election expenses. But you see what happened in 2014. In December 2014, that 21 state governors contributed 21.05 billion. Each governor gave 1 billion, you know, which is against the Electoral Act. So you have increasingly a situation where the government itself violates its own laws. And when the governments, you know, become the violator of its own laws, who are you going to hold responsible? And we've had several instances whereby, you know, the government make laws and then they go against it. So it's become a very difficult problem. You know, the laws are there in the judiciary, but the government consistently go against this law, and they are now co-opting the people. You know, in 2008, the federal government set up the Justice Mohammed Wise, you know, Electoral Commission, and they made far-reaching recommendations. In fact, people thought it would be the end. It was set up by Yaradua, you know, but, you know, there are so many. In that section, he said there should be electoral courts that will try, just like you have in South Africa and even in the UK. Offenses. You know, you try electoral offenses. But the government, instead of looking at this, they threw it away and then set up, you know, Namani panel that was set up again by, you know, Buhari. So there have been 3 panels in the past 10 years. The one set up by Yaradua, the one set up, I think, Ahmed Lemu Commission, presidential panel, set up by Jonathan, and then another one set up by President Buhari. So none of them has taken that time to look at the recommendation made by Justice Mohammed Wise, which I think is the best that, you know, should be a kind of a guide for this country.
In all of this, because we're about rounding off now, how helpless is INEC, or how hopeless is the situation of INEC in handling this issue? Because when you say that the government itself, because government is at the top, even INEC is just a fragment. If government at the top is being the one violating these rules and violating these laws and standards, what can INEC do in this kind of situation?
In addition to that, INEC has actually said that it's looking at, you know, changing the voting process by adopting a more secret voting system.
There are so many things that INEC can do. You know, because I have monitored elections, I know what they do. When you go to the polling unit to vote, there is an agent watching you. They know, they list the names of those political parties. So if APC is down or PDP is down, then you are voting for PDP. They know where you are voting. Then they know the particular party you are voting for. They give you a signal. They don't give you the money right at the polling unit. They give you after the election. So what INEC can do is to make that voting process more secretive. They should create, you know, a means where other people will not have access to those that are casting their votes, so that people can vote in secret. Then we also need to realize that the media, you know, we need to expose, you know, these fraudulent practices. Communities, the community leaders, traditional institutions must realize that our culture, our values are being taken away. And if we are not careful, this can destabilize the country to the detriment of everyone that lives in this country.
All right, we have to leave it here now, but we'll keep you so that we can round off on this proper.
All right, we're glad to have you back. We have the Executive Director, Journalist for Democratic Rights, Adewale Adeoye, who's with us in the studio talking about vote buying. And, of course, what are the implications for Nigeria's electoral process and democracy? What lies ahead if nothing is done to stem it right now? To say nip it in the bud, it's already out of the bud. Okay. So now INEC has said that it may change the voting process by adopting a more secret voting system, which was what you talked about earlier. But what do you think is the role of how much voter education really is going out there, and who really should take responsibility for that? Is it the politicians themselves? Is it INEC? Is it
the political party?
You know, or the political parties?
The way the politicians educate people is to spread goodies. You know, so we will need independent groups, civil society organizations, and INEC itself. Then Nigerian National Orientation Agency. They need to be involved in implanting a new culture in our people. And it must not just be on election day. It must be part of our educational processes. When we are growing up as, you know, youths in our primary schools, you know, education at that time must be with character. You cannot be educated without, I mean, culture and character is the important ingredient of
education.
Was
moral education.
Yes. So when you are growing up in secondary school, you grow up to be a total human being that has respect for that. I mean, that, you know, talk about values, about heritage, about discipline, about the need that you need to resist corruption. So it's not just about election day alone. We need to change the way we think. So I think it's not just a job for INEC alone, but INEC is the principal organization. So if they can create a kind of striking examples whereby if you know that, you know, votes were bought in a particular polling unit, then you take the decision to cancel that election. People should be able to go to court to challenge people that emerge through such fraudulent practices and in fact ban them from even contesting further elections. But in a situation where those candidates take them to court, either they win or they lose, they can still come back in the next 4 years to contest election. I mean, which was what happened in the Ekiti state. You know, we saw what happened. He came back after 4 years to contest election again, and using the same method to use another 4 years, he probably is going to contest for the vice president of this country. Who knows? I mean, for the president of this country. So there must be sanctions. There must be punitive measures to ensure that people that emerge through fraudulent means never enjoy the fruits of.
All right, even before getting to the concept of the vote buying, the laws, electoral guidelines, or the electoral codes state that there's a certain amount of money that contestants must not go beyond when you're using for the president, the Senate, the governor, the House of Reps, and down there. When it comes to upholding that part of the law, how much has INEC done when it comes to checking, verifying, ensuring that those who are contesting actually have lived according to or lived by that standard?
Well, the pages are not blank because I know that between 2015 and now, there have been 117 annulments of elections. But what we are saying is not enough. You know, we need to do more. There have been people have lost, you know, even there were by-elections in some places, though some people died, but then there were those elections that are not 117 cases, you know, between 2015 and now. But it's not enough because when it involves big people, you know, governors, senators, and all that, nothing happens. It's only maybe we are talking about councillors, House of Rep, and all that. So we need to ensure that INEC comes out with a mechanism that will ensure that this vote buying becomes a thing of the past. And we need to assist INEC. We need to expose those politicians that are giving money. It's not just about giving money. They buy rice, you know, before the election, to traditional rulers, indomies, and also it's not just when you give cash.
Just stick to noodles.
There's no way Nigeria can be great when our democratic process is fraudulent. You know, fraudulent leaders will end up emerging as our leaders, and they will corrupt the entire system, and Nigeria will never, you know, be able to grow as a great nation.
But don't we have a very, very fundamental problem? I mean, you cannot give what you don't have in the first place. We say that INEC is an independent body that is expected to run elections in a credible, free, fair manner. But INEC itself is not even independent. Let's talk about INEC's funding, for example. It's still struggling with, you know, expecting funds from the government, where the National Assembly has not even sat to.
Part of the recommendations of Justice Wise was that if you want to be picked as INEC chairman, it must be advertised. That it should not be left, you know, at the instance of the president to just pick somebody he likes and then send the name to the Senate. But if you advertise it, there is going to be a kind of competition. Because for a president that is picking the INEC chairman, already knows the kind of person he is, and most likely the INEC chairman is going to dance to his bidding. So we need to learn about best practices all over the world, whereby the chairman of INEC will be a competitive position. Civil society
that, of course, is in the appointment of
the INEC. You advertise it, so it's not just the president. You know, and then
added to that is the issue of funding for the
funding. They need independent sources of funding. But the first thing is that the process of election must not be the prerequisite of the president. You know, once it is independent and then the Senate has a kind of budget for the National Assembly has their own budget for them, then it's going to be far, far better than what we have today. And the same thing also applies to SEC at the state level, whereby the governors just nominate even party members to go and conduct local government election. That's why
the State Electoral Commission.
There is no state where the opposition party wins local government election because it's more or less the affair of the party in power. So
even House of Assembly.
Talking about democracy, we should learn from Ghana. We don't need to go to Europe. We should learn from South Africa. We should even learn from Cote d'Ivoire. These smaller countries, look at what is going on in Rwanda. This a country that just emerged after years of war where 500,000 people died. Rwanda is now the reference point for
the whole of Africa.
So why are we supposed to be the giant of Africa? Every time we are drawing back the progress of Africa and we call ourselves a great nation. It's quite a shame. And we must rise up to this occasion. We shouldn't leave it for INEC alone. All of us must put a stop to it. If you bribe 500,000 people with 5,000 naira each, that gives you 2.5 billion naira. That is enough to pay salary of you know, some workers for just 1 month. And that's why you see so many states are owing workers, because they just need to pile down the money because of the election. That's what they think matters to them, not about, you know, providing essentials of life.
Now, the earlier she was asking about the issue of the weaponization of poverty. Would you really say that actually the thing has worked in the context, or seeing it from the window of the fact that the people themselves who should have said, no, we don't want this monies. What we want is go in there, good governance, provide this and provide that. But we hear even in the Kitty incident, a lot of people were, come on, they are sharing money here. They said they are sharing money. Let's go. And when we had families who will go here, distribute themselves, go collect from the other side, and come here and also get from this other side. So they were feasting on it.
Yeah, naturally human beings have the natural instinct, you know, to do things wrongly. And that's why there are laws. If you go to the United States and the government allows a situation where you can begin to give $100 per voter, some people will take the money. And when there are no checks and balances, more people will begin to take that money, and it becomes a culture. So, but in a situation where you know, there are no sanctions. You know, people are bound to continue to commit the same crime over and over again. So it's not about whether Nigerians are like that. We weren't like that in the 60s, in the 50s.
It's a basic human instinct.
It's the fact that the state is the one that initiated this kind of corrupt practices, and it is the state that is expanding it, that is co-opting the people into it.
So it is the state that can also...
Yes, it's the state that is in the position to stop it, but they are not ready to do it because they know it's for their own cheap political gains. And
then you have a situation where the security agencies themselves are found complicit in this corrupting of the electoral process.
Yeah, the security forces are, they are helpless because they are at the beckon and call of the politicians, the beckon and call of the governor of a state. So if the police commissioner has been settled, and then all the police men have also been settled, they will look the other way. But we need striking examples, and that's why INEC, needs to create that kind of a watershed, whereby there will be examples, there will be sanctions, people will be taken to court and prosecuted. I think by the time we are setting that standard, people will be compelled to sit up.
When it comes to exposing this and keeping government on its toes, the civil society organization and the media are said to be agencies or said to be industries or organizations that have what it takes. But if you assess how far they've come with holding government accountable, how would you assess their success in that regard?
The civil society and the media, I think I should give them credit. Because when you watch television, you listen to radio, you see a lot of corruption cases being exposed. Look at what Premium Times has done, Sarah Reporter, even TVC here. I watch your clips, corruption, all sorts of things going on. They are reported. But we have limitations. We cannot prosecute, those that are carrying out this crime. The best we can do is to expose them. So after exposing them, we expect, the arms of government, the police, to go ahead and
to take it up from there.
Yeah, and of course we are becoming we are becoming tired. We are becoming toil-worn because every day those cases are, there's a heap of human rights violations of electoral practices. So you report one just yesterday, and then you see another one today, and then the next day.
And then you forget the previous one.
Forget the previous. So we've done our bit. We expect the security organs to also do their own. So that if everybody does his own work, I think it will be better for it as a nation.
I recall that in February of this year, INEC actually partnered with EFCC to checkmate open vote buying and all of that. I wonder how effective that has been, because if that partnership has been on since February of this year, and then you had the Ekiti election that happened in July 14, and you still had this open, blatant, vote buying. How effective has this partnership been?
Well, perhaps maybe it's a kind of drop in the ocean, but it's worth it. It's worth it because we need to start somewhere. I think it's a step forward. It's not a step backward at all, but we just need to do more to ensure that we get it right. But I think it's a starting point. That TFCC has seen it as a major problem, that certain government institutions see this as a major problem. It's a step forward, but we need to take it off from there. It's not just enough to say you are setting up monitoring this and then nothing happens at the end of the day. We need to ensure that the evidence they have are presented in court to help the judiciary to perform its functions credibly.
Now, what would you say are the impacts of this on the credibility of the outcome of an election process?
Yeah, it shows that the social contract between the people and the government has collapsed, and nobody cares about it. So you are going to see bad government, you are going to see poor infrastructure, you are going to see, poor services in almost every sector, because the people don't have the moral legitimacy to hold the government accountable. And then the government also believes that they have settled the people, so they don't hold the public and the society any obligation any longer. They have been settled on election day, so they have a blank check to do whatever they like. So at the end of the day, it's going to bring underdevelopment, it's going to bring poverty, it's going to bring exclusion and more violence and even terrorism.
Do we need foreign collaboration, like the EU and all the rest of them, to actually help out with this?
Yeah, I think it's not a bad idea, because we need to be able to invoke international instruments to whip Nigeria into the path of honor.
Okay. Yeah. We have to leave it here now. Adewale Adeoye, Executive Director, Journalist for Democratic Rights. Thank you very much for coming on the program. Thank you.